and it was a gesture by some, a vocal minority, in terms of not liking the creative. Santa Claus didn't come for that pay-per-view, and so that's really what that was for them.
And those very same fans will go online or go and bitch and moan and complain and kvetch to each other by saying,
"That's right, I'm going to jump on social media and I'm going to tweet about it until my fingers bleed."
They're always going to find something to bitch, moan, and complain about. But until they boycott, STFU.
Me and my friend Mark, we're going to stop watching.
And they say, "I'm never going to watch this ever again." Well, I know that person is going to be glued to the television next week.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Wrestlenomics Radio. I'm Brandon Thurston, broadcasting live and on demand from Buffalo, New York, where it's not snowing, it's sunny. Today on Sunday, April the 24th, 2022. It's been 14 years? Is that right? 2008, 2 plus 12 is 14 years since I enlisted. Jesus. Anyway, I'm joined by my co-host, ring announcer, comedian, Bitcoin investor, crypto expert, television expert, the everyman of Wrestlenomics, Chris Gullo. Hello.
Hello. I also like to call myself pro wrestling's utility man. I can do everything but wrestle.
Mm-hmm. You've have you ever had a match?
Yes.
I seem to recall.
Yes,
I seem to recall teaching you how to take a shoulder tackle or something before a show.
Deliver a shoulder tackle and you taught me the ropes.
Because someone had the audacity to put you in a match or something. Is that correct? Am I remembering this right?
Yes.
What was that? How did that go?
That was
a long time ago.
Yeah, I think it was 17, early 2017. Maybe 18, I can't remember. But I have had 2 matches. I've been in a couple Battle Royals too, but I've also been in a 6-man tag and a tag team match. No singles match for me though.
Wow. You worked with Bruce Barr, Beefcake, and Greg Valentine though. Is that am I remembering that correctly?
Well, yes, but I just the manager on the outside that got his hair cut.
And you were working a little tight with them. Is that right? You were a little bit unprofessional.
So here's the story, and I'll tell the story on the air here. So I do a spot with Brutus the Bar Beefcake, and I'm doing the whole neck choke on the ropes, and the ref's not looking, standard 80s heel manager thing, and I was very loose because I was afraid to hurt the guy. Like I was just very loose, And the next night, when I'm on that show, not involved in anything with them, but they're also Beefcake and Valentine are wrestling a couple friends of mine, and my buddy Brian is a manager for that team. And after the match, like he was frustrated. And he goes, he wouldn't let me do any spots with him. I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, he said you were too stiff with him last night.
And we're talking about
his neck was hurting.
He is like, Valentine, Greg Valentine.
No, Beefcake.
Beefcake.
Was too stiff.
Okay.
Yes. I'm like, this guy would wrestle Bad News Brown, and then I me, the chubby, overweight manager, is too stiff and too tough for him.
Okay. More to come on Chris Gullo's shoot interview, which is coming out later this year. Anyway,
I got some stories.
Anyway, if people want to send in a super chat here, if they're watching live on YouTube, how can they do that, Chris Gullo?
Well, you can actually hit that little chat button. There's a little $sign on YouTube there, and you can put in any amount starting at $1. And speaking of super chat, they're already flowing. Our good friend Tim B here with the super chat just saying, "Good morning, boys. I'm sure I'll have a question later, but here's $5."
Thank you.
Tim, when you do have that question, just kind of preface like, "Hey, this is my question" in the chat. Like this is the one I want to answer, and I'll ask Brandon the question. Okay. But yeah, so it should be a fun show. We got a lot to talk about today. We're going to kind of talk about fan popularity with consumer-driven metrics for AEW and WWE. And we're also going to discuss kind of the media ecosystem right now with streaming, as Netflix subscribers have not only stalled but gone down. CNN Plus is shutting down after just launching, and much more. So,
yes. I hope our streaming's holding up. I do see some unfavorable numbers here. But anyway, I heard that you went to I know we did talk on Wednesday night, but we did not talk that much about your live experience. I know you are somebody who needs a smile put on his face, on a maintenance for your smile. So you naturally went to the KeyBank Center in downtown Buffalo, New York for WWE's Monday Night Raw this past Monday. How was it?
Well, first off, I mean, I've attended a lot of wrestling shows at the KeyBank Center, and paid this cheap amount for this good of a seat ever in my wrestling fandom. And I've been going to shows since the Niagara Falls Convention Center in 1993. But I remember, I went, so we got there, me and my friend, I literally walked up to the ticket lady and go, give me your two cheapest tickets in the house. And she goes, do you want 100 level or 200 level? I'm like, okay, 100 level, of course. And we got 2 seats, and they weren't obstructed viewing. You were right there in the entranceway.
What did you
could
pay?
See everybody come out and everything. And $24.99
20.
And
so
because I bought it at the box office, there was no fees. So less than $50 for me and my friend to attend the show.
You walked up, $25, and you sat not on the floor but on the first level. You were where were you, like, relative, if it was a hockey game, where on the ice were you situated?
I would be closer to the left goal end. Like,
okay, so you were on a corner.
Somebody's, but
this is a corner seat.
Yeah. I would say corner seat. Yeah,
but you weren't at center ice. This wasn't like opposite hard cam or anything.
No.
Okay. How is the crowd? How is this? We have the slide up here. Probably nobody can see it unless I change to this view. Tickets distributed. I think this is. It might be slightly different. We might be seeing it in the ticker. But one of the last counts that WrestleTix had for this event was 7,351 distributed. That's a lot better than the house show they did. This was a Raw, so you'd expect that.
Way better.
So, yeah.
Oh no, well, go ahead. I'll let you finish your point. I'll kind of talk about that, the crowd size and all that.
So how was the crowd reaction? Or say what you're gonna say.
All right. Well, okay. We'll talk about the crowd. Yes. First off, parking was more than what it was when I would park there in December, because I did go to the house show in December too. Parking was definitely more, and there was a lot more people. Traffic was a lot worse. So like I said, it was double the crowd of what they had at the house show. Mm-hmm. As far as the crowd, go figure. You know where the crowd was the hottest? When talent came out, and actually during the wrestling matches. That live crowd was very restless. For any time they threw a video in the backstage, you could tell just restless. It got and people just chanting random things and all that. They except for the Edge segment, the crowd was pretty hot for the Edge segment, but that's probably because he badmouthed the Buffalo sports teams. And the wedding. The crowd could care less about that double commitment ceremony.
I heard that
they were chanting.
I heard that during the wedding, you actually initiated some disruptive chants, since you are admittedly an AEW operative. You went to this event to cause disruptive chants. You're one of those people who complains and kvetches about the W product, but doesn't boycott it. And in fact, you went to the arena to be disruptive. Is that correct? Can I confirm that?
That is not correct. You were fed some misinformation. No, I did not start the shout chant, nor did I join in, but I laughed that it was happening because it was very loud. One thing I noticed too on this show is they mentioned Buffalo a lot on TV. Mm-hmm. And we talked about how they don't really do that. Where they mention the cities they're in. Like,
They mention if it's a big enough market, they will mention it. When they're in a smaller market for television, who knows where they are. But Buffalo's not a huge
Buffalo's
market.
Mid to late 50s for a media market, though.
It is on the lower end but it does have like major sports teams. 2 out of the 4 league sports they've got. I think it's in some place that they go a couple times a year. I don't know. I think it's big enough. But yes, we are a suburb of New York City or something. Is that correct?
Yeah, that was one of the lines that said, yep. But the crowd also too, the lie detector thing. They weren't really into that either. That segment either. Mm-hmm. So go figure. This crowd loved the wrestling part of it, Brandon.
No, but that's not what the casual fan wants. Okay, that's not what I want.
Yes, you are the casual wrestling fan.
For those listening just in audio, my lower third says casual fan. I don't know that we're gonna really talk about New Japan today, but yeah, we'll get into some other things that are related.
Overall, it was an enjoyable experience. I mean, a cheap seat, a good seat, and the matches and everything were good.
Yeah.
So,
yes.
Overall, it wasn't too bad. They do new thing now when they try to like occupy the fans between commercial breaks. Is they do like this, like, show us your best DX, and you do the X Chop, or show us your best Heartbreak Kid, and they play like the music and they go around the arena and all that. So that's like a newer thing they're doing now.
And I've noticed from doing the quarter hours where I have to like go through the DVR and almost watch this content, that they'll do. This is happening on Raw, SmackDown, and NXT, where they cannot go to a commercial break without first doing an entrance. So there's a wrestler that comes out, has an entrance, and then waits in the ring, and for oftentimes, not just the duration of a commercial break, but for some other non-in-ring segments as well.
So I'll give you an example of that. So RK Bro came out, they're on TV getting in the ring and everything. Then they go to commercial. They obviously turn RK Bro's music off. Then they do this. All right, folks, we want to see your "You Can't See Me." So everybody's doing the "You Can't See Me," and then they pan on like Matt Riddle actually doing it. We can't see you, bro. And then as soon as they're about to go back, they play the RK Bro music again, and then here we are.
Okay. I hope John Cena is getting some royalties or something for that. Anyway, what do you want to talk about today?
So we'll get right into it here, and we actually we did get a super chat, which will kind of tie into this real quick as far as fan stuff, but we'll start with the super chat and then we'll get into this. But the super chat from CWJ at 128. Good morning. If you had to speculate, how much revenue does AEW need to break even? Curious if AEW will increase to 5 to 6 pay-per-views a year. Thank you. And thank you, CWJ.
Thanks. It's very difficult for me to. It's easier for me to estimate revenue. Where I think in 2020 I estimated something like $64 million. I happen to remember that exactly because it's mentioned in the MLW complaint. 80 some odd million is what I estimated for 2021. It's easier to estimate revenue because a lot of the evidence of revenue is visible publicly, whether that's we know what AEW's TV deal is worth on an average annual basis, according to public comments from Tony Khan. We know through WrestleTix have an idea of what their ticket sales are like, because we know roughly how many people are attending the events. We can get an idea of venue merch. It's harder to unpack what the cost is of everything. I think I have an idea of what the cost is of an average TV taping for AEW. I think it's a little over $500,000 every time they tape television at a major venue. I don't know about the dark and elevation things. Those are probably less expensive, and it's probably less expensive when they go to Daly's place. But it's hard to, for instance, estimate what are they paying talent, or how is Tony Khan's investment apparently, with AEW's business, with under AEW's business, this investment that he's told Forbes that he made, that was at least $10 million. Does that all count into the year that it happened, which was maybe last year? Does it count into this year? We plan, time allowing today, I plan on getting into some speculation about what WWE and AEW's next TV rights upgrade might look like, assuming it is an upgrade. And once they make a deal that is at a strong upgrade from their current deal, $44 million, if they get it tripled or quadrupled or more than that, I tend to believe they'll be profitable at that point, because that's a lot of money. And I mean, I guess we could take about $500,000 or like $600,000, multiply that by 52 and add in some more expensive pay-per-view tapings and maybe a few other tapings that they're doing. And then you get an idea of their production cost. To try to answer the question directly, I think they'll be profitable if they get a multi-factor increase in their TV rights fees, which would only go into effect, by the way, in 2025, not any sooner than that. So I wouldn't be confident that they'll be profitable until that happens.
Second part of the question was just, curious if they would increase to 5 to 6 pay-per-views a year. I think this New Japan Super Show could possibly be something annual, and that's right smack dab in the summer between their 2 shows, and I think that would be a good 5th pay-per-view. But I don't see them expanding more than that.
It has been indicated to me that they will not do more. I mean, obviously they're going to do a 5th one along with New Japan, and maybe they're sharing the revenue from that. Not clear to me. Probably though, right? I don't expect them to do more than 4 pay-per-views a year, as long as the current distribution through pay-per-view is what they're doing. Maybe if they make a deal with some sort of streaming platform, like WWE has with Peacock, and part of what makes that deal viable is more than 4 a year, maybe then, but not for now. I expect them to do 4 pay-per-views a year as long as their current model of distribution is what it is.
Yeah, and I agree. Like I said, I mean, they could do like a once a year, this New Japan thing, or maybe they do a different idea or something like that. But yeah, I agree. All right, so we'll kind of get right into what we were going to talk about today, lead off here, and talk about some consumer-driven data when it comes to fan popularity. And we're going to start with AEW, with TV ratings, pay-per-view buys, YouTube views, and Google web search.
Yes. Is AEW growing? Whatever you want to interpret that to mean. I put this together because I saw people talking about it, and a lot of people, including people who are influential and who people listen to and who draw an audience, talking about how AEW is not growing. And there's a criticism that even this New Japan thing that they're doing, that's not going to draw anybody beyond the captive audience that they already have. We're not going to get into that, I don't think, but I can say we're not going to look at ticket sales here, because we're missing a whole year and a half or so of ticket sales because of the pandemic. I could have gone back and looked into 2019. I'm not as confident in the numbers that we have in 2019 as I am in the numbers that we have now through WrestleTix. So when July comes, Q3 comes, we'll start having year-over-year comparisons for tickets distributed for both AEW and WWE. But what we do have for now is all the metrics that Gullo just said: TV ratings, pay-per-view buys, YouTube views, and web search. And all of those things are up in Q1 2022, and most of the other quarters as well. Total viewership in Q1 was up 29%. The demo was up 28%. And it's been up year over year on a quarterly basis for the last 4 quarters. Now, is that going to be the case in Q2? It's going to at least be a tighter comparison, because we're going to be comparing AEW in Q2 against an AEW in Q2 of 2021 that was mostly after the end of the Wednesday Night War. We are now more than 1 year since the end of the Wednesday Night War, which ended in the middle of April last year. So those year-over-year comparisons are not going to be as favorable, I am virtually certain, unless something big happens and AEW's ratings are even bigger than what they are now. But that is happening. TV viewership is up. one could dismiss that to say, hey, but they're not going against NXT. You can look at NXT, though, and their ratings are even lower on a year-over-year basis. And they're free of the AEW competition as well. Clearly, to me, that's about the content. And maybe partly it's about the content in AEW's case as well. Anyway, pay-per-view buys, every pay-per-view of a given name, Revolution, Double or Nothing, All Out, Full Gear, every one of those pay-per-views have sold more pay-per-view buys than the pay-per-view of the same name in the prior year. That will probably end with All Out later this year. Double or Nothing, I believe, could do better than the 115,000 buys that it did last year, which is lower than anything has done since the arrival of CM Punk. So I would expect it to do more than 115,000 buys. I do not expect All Out to do 205,000 buys, which is what that pay-per-view did last year with the first match with CM Punk in 7 years. But all those pay-per-views are up. YouTube views have been up every year. I'm fairly confident in this data that I'm extracting from Social Blade. Social Blade is counting every single day. It's going in and counting the number of video views that are publicly visible on the YouTube channel's About page. If you delete a video or set it to private or unlisted, the views that are related to that video disappear from your sum of video views. So there's that to deal with. That's why it says here, source Social Blade, data adjusted by Wrestlenomics, because I'm going in there and doing some math to try to detect, because in some cases there are days that are negative on video views for AEW or WWE or whoever's YouTube channel, on days where they apparently removed videos from public visibility. So I'm trying to deal with that and use the Social Blade data to look at how many video views is this channel doing over the course of time. And after making that adjustment, every quarter is up for AEW on YouTube. Does YouTube draw a lot of money? No, probably somewhere around $1 per 1,000 views. So maybe I would think in the high six figures for a channel like AEW. Web search. I think web search is insightful when you look at it over a long course of time. We've got 4 consecutive quarters where the year-over-year difference worldwide and in the US is positive. In some quarters, like Q3 of last year, the quarter where CM Punk arrived and Bryan Danielson and Adam Cole arrived, that's up 84% worldwide, 103% doubled in the US. And in this quarter, Q1, it's still up. In fact, on a rolling 12-month basis, AEW's web search has never been higher. I think web search reflects how much people are thinking about a given topic, a given brand. So, is AEW growing? In what? In popularity, in revenue? Yes and yes. Is it growing in profitability? Probably not. It's probably not profitable yet, which is sort of what we discussed based on the last question. There's that. Anything to add before we go on to WWE?
So you would say, as a brand, is it becoming more of a household name? You would say, with these metrics, it's just a brand. I
would stop well short of calling AEW a household name, but you're talking about being in that direction, being a recognizable brand. Yes, it is becoming more recognizable, and it is probably generating more revenue on a year-over-year basis.
Could be its own self-identity to the casual fan, because I know you've probably talked to people that probably aren't even casual. They're hardcore trust. Like, yeah, I saw some wrestling on the TV the other day. I guess CM Punk's there. What is that?
Yeah. Did you encounter any family members over the Easter holiday that and did you ask them if they knew what AEW was, your favorite wrestling company?
I did not, because nobody in my family is even a casual wrestling fan. Nobody. I am the only person that likes and enjoys professional wrestling in my family.
Okay. But what about WWE? WWE, we'll look at this on a short-term basis first, and then I have a little bit of a deeper look. And what we have for WWE, it's different for WWE, right? Because, well, for one thing, we don't have pay-per-view buys data to look at, and not to the extent that there was before 2014 when the network launched. So there's no pay-per-view. The SW is still selling pay-per-views on a very limited basis to people who buy WWE events on pay-per-view for whatever lingering reason. But there's no pay-per-view data to look at. WWE's YouTube is impacted by moves that they've made on their YouTube channel to appease business partners, including Sony in India and including the new Peacock deal, relatively new Peacock deal. So WWE's YouTube views are down on a year-over-year basis for 4 straight quarters. We're making an excuse for that here, that they've taken videos off, and that appears to be a factor. Otherwise, maybe they would be up. I don't know. We can't really know based on the data that we have in front of us. Raw viewership has been down most quarters since 2020. SmackDown viewership has done better, and SmackDown has moved from, in fact, in all of this time, no, not in 2019, but SmackDown has been on Fox on Friday since Q4 2019. And what we see is, viewership is, in most quarters, is down. Viewership in Q3 2021 on a year-over-year basis was up. What happened in Q3 2021?
Live touring.
Live touring returned. But what we're seeing here, I have seen in the wrestling conversation of late, both what I said earlier, people saying that AEW is not growing, but they are. And then I've also seen people saying that WWE's declining. I've certainly said that WWE's declining from 2016, roughly to the present. What we're seeing lately, though, is that I think their popularity decline is finally flattening. Why? Well, let's look here in that we can see Raw's viewership year over year is only down 5%. It's still down, but hey, all TV is down, and being down 5% is not that bad. Demo is down 16%, so Demo's still down pretty strongly. Okay, so that Raw's mixed bag, but what about SmackDown? SmackDown is actually up in Q1 in total viewership by 1%. Being up 1%, I think, is pretty good. They're down 5%, though, in the demo. So not a great story, but a decent one in ratings. If we look at web search, which is basically the only other meaningful metric we're going to have to look at here, web search is up year over year in Q1 by 1% for WWE. It's up 11% in Q1 in the United States. And if we look back at in this, I don't know if people will be able to see this. I know our stream is not behaving well. I might have to give Spectrum a call pretty soon. But if we go back and look deeper into the log of time, and if we go back to 2015, which is what I have on the screen now, if we look at the web search from 2015 to the present, we can see that beginning in Q1 2017, let's go on a worldwide basis first, because that's the clearer case. We have several consecutive quarters of worldwide web search decline for WWE. Q1 2017, beginning there, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 consecutive quarters of decline in worldwide web search. WW, I'm not talking about the World Wide Web here, don't yell at me. In web search globally. That has ended, though. Again, Q1 up 1%. What do they call it? An economist's definition of recession is like 2 consecutive quarters of year-over-year decline, something like that. You could say when it comes to web search, WWE has been in a web search recession for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 consecutive years, and the recession is finally just ending now, maybe. And U.S. web search is up 11%. We just said that, though. There is one quarter that breaks that streak in the U.S., and that's Q2 2019, where it was up 2% from the Q2 of the prior year. Did something happen in Q2 2019 that you can think of? Like, that's the WrestleMania quarter. The last WrestleMania before the pandemic. That's the Becky Lynch, Ronda Rousey, Charlotte Flair main event, WrestleMania. So I don't know. Maybe Becky
John
Lynch is a
Cena
draw.
came back too, did the Thugonomics rap. Like they had quite a few things in 2019 for that WrestleMania in New York and the Raw after.
So my like assessment of the business here is that, AEW is growing much smaller in many ways, including revenue, including profitability, including television viewership, including the demo viewership, including web search, including YouTube views. WWE is way bigger, but AEW is growing. WWE, while their financial picture, their revenues, their net income is growing, their popularity until Q1 of this year has been in decline. Now we're seeing signs that we have to say that is stabilizing. Maybe. And if we see this continue if we see ratings continue to be, only down by double digits or up a little bit, we see web search continue to be up to the degree that it is, or to not be down, I think then we're seeing a stabilization of this popularity decline that we've been talking about here since, I think I remember writing the article in 2018 for Fightful at the time, going over a preponderance of metrics, including the ones we're looking at, where it started to occur. You started to be evident that WWE's popularity was declining because of year-over-year comparisons to 2017 that you were able to look back on in 2018. So that looks to be stabilizing, just to say that again. And maybe the wrestling business is getting a little bit warmer. It's not a boom period because WWE is not even as popular as it was a few years ago. Why is this happening? Why is WWE not continuing to fall with gravity here? John Pollock and I talked about this on Friday on the Post Wrestling News Update. I have some additional thoughts since we talked about it. Do you have any guesses though, Gullo?
I mean, I think brand loyalty to the audience that is there. A fan base that's never going to go away.
But that's not growing. That's not growth. That's intensity. Maybe they're just searching more.
I mean, that's the thing. I think they have they're not growing, but they won't take a deep fall because of that loyalty in that fan base. But I think a lot of the growth is not really creating, and not that they don't want to. We talked about not creating a lot of new stars at the crowd. Whenever the crowd wants to organically create a new star, they seem to steer away from that direction. So really,
no. Why is Q1 looking more positive than any quarter in a long time? That's what I'm trying to talk about here.
So specifically, this Q1,
or right now, I expect this to continue. I would expect this to continue into Q2.
I mean, would you just say that it's maybe a growth in wrestling in general? Like, as far as people are AEW's here, what's WWE doing? It's that whole...
Mm-hmm. I think that could be a factor. And I think what's a factor also is Peacock. I think there was... I mean, we're not going back in time. We've only got 2015 and forward on the screen. But if we had metrics going further back in time, at least in web search, because TV's an aging metric, YouTube is an immature metric. But if we look at the web search, we saw that grow from 2013. It got bigger in 14, got bigger in 15, got bigger in 16, peaked there, went down after that. I think, why did that happen? And we see a number of different metrics too, including ticket sales and merchandise sales, real revenue consumer metrics that rose over that time of, the mid 2010s, let's call it. Why did that happen? I think it had a lot to do with distribution in the W network. I think developing new stars, including the 3 members of the Shield, helps. I think developing women into actual wrestlers, that helps. And and the distribution helped. People got access to the WWE Network to see the pay-per-views who were not, it was not reaching them before. What's happening now? I think after that, okay, the quality of the product was not good, and people got tired of it and frustrated, and they disengaged with WWE. And what's happening now is that Peacock is here, and maybe people who are watching it on Peacock, maybe they did, maybe they didn't ever subscribe to the W Network. But Peacock is in a lot of homes relative to the W Network. It's, there's like 24 million in monthly active users or something like that. It's in more than a dozen million homes. It's in 24 million homes where people are using it on a monthly active basis. So there's more reach here, and I think that is a factor. And the return to fans helps also. And maybe Roman Reigns is a bigger star now than he has been in a while.
I was just going to go back to your point. I think another point of why that 14 to 16 era did see a little uptick in popularity was a lot of the return of nostalgic stars. In that time period, we had Sting, we had Goldberg, we had the Hardys, we had Shane McMahon, I believe, too. So there was a lot of return of nostalgic stars in that time period too.
Yeah. Here's the sequential situation with ticket sales since the return to touring. What stands out most to me is look at that Dynamite number, Gullo. Look at that Dynamite column. Analyze that column for me.
Well, I mean, if you look at it here, it looks like that it is decreased over time from Q3.
Yes, Dynamite in Q1 averaged about. Dynamite in Q1 averaged about 5,000 tickets distributed according to WrestleTix. Q1 is usually a good time for WWE, and that's what we saw. We saw an increase in tickets distributed for SmackDown and for Raw. House shows, we did not. House shows continued to decline, moving towards 4,000 on average, and we'll see as the quarters move on. But that's what I see is that Raw and SmackDown, that's a consumer metric. Maybe Raw and SmackDown, at least the TV tapings, not the house shows, because I think house shows are an obsolete product that Vince is holding on to for whatever reason. But Raw and SmackDown, see some stabilization there. Dynamite, not so much. Maybe because Dynamite's running too many of the same markets over and over again. But I know they have some new markets that they're going to coming soon.
Yeah, that was the point I was going to bring. Repetition of markets. I think they've been in like the same cities in Texas multiple times since the return to live touring.
Yes. Like
Cedar Park, and I can't remember all the names of them, but yeah.
Right. I found out that I didn't realize that there were also Google web search IDs, let's call them, topics that I can select. So rather than what we're always talking about here when I'm talking about web search, I'm not talking about the web search for one particular search string. I'm not talking about the searches for WWE. That would be included in a number of things that Google decides in its algorithmic wisdom that should be included in this topic that they call WWE. And then they always have little descriptors for what this thing is that you've selected. And I want to bring this up. For years, what do you think they described WWE as? What is WWE?
I think wrestling.
It was described as a media company. Media company. That has changed recently. No longer is WWE categorized by Google Trends as a media company. Oh no. It is now a professional wrestling company. Stephanie's got to get on top of that.
I thought would have happened.
Stephanie's got to get on top of that. They're going backwards. Anyway. But I didn't realize that there were topics for all of these relatively small independent wrestling companies until the other day. I knew that some of these existed, but I grabbed the data for the following, what I would call super indies: AAW, the indie based in Chicago; AIW, based in Cleveland; Beyond Wrestling, based in the New England area; Big Time Wrestling in California; Chikara, CZW, Evolve, GCW, House of Hardcore; Insane Championship Wrestling, the UK-based one; Northeast Wrestling, the New England-based one. OTT in Ireland, Preston City Wrestling in the UK, PWG, Progress, Shimmer, Shine, WXW in Germany. All of those.
Big time wrestling. You not the California. I mean, you pulled the one that runs like the super shows in the Northeast that usually has like all the former like WWE names. Is that what the one you pulled?
I think this is
I think
this is the one in California.
Okay.
The one that
I feel like that one's nowhere near as popular as the one that usually runs in the Northeast and the South.
It's described in Google Trends as a wrestling school.
Interesting.
And the one in I could be wrong here. I think the one in California has a wrestling school, and the one in the New England areas, the Northeast area, does not. I could be totally wrong.
Yeah, I know. Obviously, I'm more aware of that one because they're the ones that like they've had Kane, the Ali, and the Hardys. Like they usually have a giant bunch of those shows.
Okay. So what I try to do is kind of do an index, and what I found here, you can see on the screen if you're watching on YouTube. We don't need to talk over the numbers here, but basically what I found is that this index of bundle of indies across the U.S. I don't think there were any there's definitely none in Canada that I selected here. I don't know if there are any in Canada that I could have. I did try Smash and it's not in there. But anyway, this would support an argument that independent wrestling peaked in 2017 and has been, on the decline, coinciding with the pandemic ever since. It even was down. I mean, it was down somewhat in 2018, still pretty high, down some more in 2019. And I think that coincides with the harvesting of indie talent, coinciding with WWE at that time and AEW recruiting that talent more.
But here we are with 2022. It looks like numbers are increasing for really any motions that are decreasing aren't really active right now.
True.
And we have an influx of talent because WWE did those mass releases.
I don't think we're ever going to have an influx of talent like we had in the early 2010s, mid 2010s, I guess, because somebody's going to get them, and there's AEW there. Whereas until 2014, there was, almost a policy of not taking their talent seriously, that independent talent seriously. But it does seem to be creeping back up. And as you point out, a lot of these companies are just not active, or not very active, and not active as they once were, including Evolve doesn't run anymore. CZW still runs? It must, right?
Yes.
Chikara.
It's like it's more scaled back. Like I think a belt collector just bought all their original titles. Now they have new belts, and it seems like a lot of students and stuff. So it's very scaled back.
Chikara. Does Chikara still run?
No.
Okay.
I heard Bush is still running a wrestling school. I don't know that to be confirmed, but that's what I heard.
House of Hardcore. Does that run anymore? I've not
No.
heard of a House of Hardcore match.
I think Dreamer mentioned that the pandemic killed it.
Preston City Wrestling, does that still probably on some level, right?
That I can't confirm. I don't know.
Progress.
Shimmer's been very inactive.
Okay. Progress still does stuff on the WWE Network?
Yes.
Does anyone watch it?
And there's
anyway.
No idea.
In WXW and ICW, is that the case for them as well?
ICW is, I believe, still has stuff on the network. I don't know about WXW. I know those companies are both actively running. It's funny, Progress, Anthony Gogo has been popping up there, and they have to cut his parts out when they put it on the WWE network.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. The moral of the story that I wanted to say here is that I retired at the right time. I think I went out on top, and I mean, we've only got a partial year here for 2022, so we'll see what happens as the year goes on. Moving on.
All right, yeah. So we'll move on. Now we're going to talk about the media landscape as a whole and not just professional wrestling. And we'll start with the doom and gloom Netflix news
Mm-hmm.
that we've been getting. And I don't know if you want me to read just this big first part here, Brandon, or
Yeah,
to the
read these
shareholder.
excerpts, which come from Netflix Investor Relations. This is their letter to shareholders on April 19th, which was Tuesday. This is when they put out their release, put out their latest update for the quarter.
Fellow shareholders, our revenue growth has slowed considerably as our results and forecasts below show. Streaming is winning over linear as we predicted, and Netflix titles are very popular globally. However, our relatively high household penetration, which including the large number of households sharing accounts, combined with competition, is creating revenue growth headwinds. In the new term, though, we're not growing revenue, as is that we're like COVID doubled the picture by significantly increasing our growth in 2020, leading up to believe our most slowing growth in 2021 was due to the COVID pull forward. Now we believe that there are four main interrelated factors at work. First, it's increasingly clear that the pace of the growth into our underlying addressable markets, broadband home, is partly dependent on factors we don't directly control, like the uptake of connected TVs. Second, in addition to our 222 million paying households, we estimate that Netflix is being shared in over 100 million additional households, including over 30 million in the US region. Third, competition for viewing with linear TV as well as YouTube, Amazon, and Hulu has been robust for the last 15. I can't remember if that's 15 years or 1.5 years.
Are you looking at
however,
this on the slides, or are you looking at it on the screen?
Yeah, I'm looking at it on the slides, but this second part is definitely smaller.
What you're on the second part? On second, in addition to.
On the first Netflix sheet, but I'm reading that second row.
Second, in addition to our 222 million paying households, we estimate that Netflix is being shared with over 100 million additional households, including Chris Gullo's household, including over 30 million in the U.S. Canada region. Third, competition for viewing with linear TV as well as YouTube, Amazon, and Hulu has been robust for the last 15 years. Competition's not new. Sleep is our competition, they say. They've said in the past. Anyway, back to actually quoting them. However, over the last 3 years, as traditional entertainment companies realize streaming is the future, many new streaming services have launched, so competition has increased. Fourth, macro factors, including sluggish economic growth, increasing inflation, geopolitical events such as Russia's invasion of Ukraine — I believe they stopped service to Russia — and some continued disruption from COVID are likely having an impact as well. So Netflix, they projected that they're going to lose subscribers this following quarter. This quarter, they did report, I believe, a slight loss in subscribers. They reported 222 million subscribers last quarter. They reported virtually the same in Q1 2022. So Netflix subscribers are down. We did talk about this to a large extent on Wednesday, but just to go a bit further here, we saw that Netflix's stock, because the speculation was that, who knows where the end is for growth for Netflix subscriber base. Now we know where the ceiling is, and the stock fell off. Oh, I'm a Netflix shareholder. I lost a lot of money too. I am also a Google shareholder. Those are the only companies that I hold that we're about to mention here. Google stock declined also because Google owns YouTube. Probably that's a factor. Comcast declined following April 19th as well. Comcast owns NBC, which operates Peacock. Disney declined. Disney has Disney Plus. They're a big player. And even Warner Brothers Discovery, their stock, which is a new stock because this is the merged Discovery company. It's only got I guess it does have about a month of a track record here. But anyway, that stock has fallen from $24.50 to $20.50. So they're down quite a bit also, leading to a story about CNN Plus. Have you been watching your CNN Plus, Chris Gullo?
I have not.
No.
And I had a conversation with my friend that actually did subscribe to it. And I asked, is this maybe something that would have been better off just being rolled in the main package of HBO Max or all that? And he goes, "Oh, I mean, it was good to be separate, but you know."
Can you see the text on the New York Times slide?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Yeah, I can read that for you.
This came out, I think, today from the New York Times.
So David Zaslov has been chief executive of Warner Brothers Discovery for all of a few hours when he learned he had a problem. On April 11th, the day his newly merged company began trading on NASDAQ, Mr. Zaslov greeted New York employees with pasta and ice cream bars, delivering an impromptu rallying cry to his new charges. He was on his way to Washington, next on the step of the coronation tour, when a call came in. His team had just gotten the first look at data from CNN Plus. The much promoted subscription service started 2 weeks before, and the news was grim. Fewer than 10,000 viewers were watching at any given time. Despite a multi-million-dollar ad campaign and big hires like Chris Wallace, they were recommending a cold eye review. 3 days later, shortly after Mr. Zaslov appeared with Oprah Winfrey for a rah-rah company town ball, he gathered deputies inside of a low-shung stucco building in Burbank, California, on the Warner Brothers studio, and said he agreed with the conclusion: shut it down.
Okay. So CNN Plus is being shut down. There was also a conference appearance that the Warner Brothers CFO did where he talked about how Discovery Plus and HBO Max will merge. Conspicuously, he did not mention CNN Plus, which made some people nervous. And then a couple days before this happened, before the decision was publicly made to shut down CNN Plus earlier this week, some data came out from CNBC, from Axios, mentioning, among other things, what you just mentioned, fewer than 10,000 viewers were watching CNN Plus at any given time, which led some people at CNN working on CNN Plus to become suspicious of their Discovery overlords, thinking that maybe people from Discovery had leaked that data so it would be reported in advance of their decision of possibly killing the streaming platform, which they did, so that the public was kind of ready for it, and ready and already thinking, well, wow, the streaming service isn't doing well, so that when we kill it, people will have an understanding. The media public, the media industry will have an understanding. So is streaming is dying now, as well as the bundle is dying. Everything is dying. My thought is that pay TV, traditional TV, is here to stay for a very long time. We may continue to see pay TV households. That is, when I say pay TV, that's ambiguous, right? We may continue to see traditional TV households decline from, how do you say this? I've written this a number of times on the keyboard. Lechtman Research Group is a, I don't know what you would call it. It's a analyst that goes through SEC filings for various cable providers, satellite providers, that counts up the number of subscriptions that they have, and what they have as of the end of the year is 76 million total pay TV households. So 76 million, which is down from, say, 3 years ago when there were 89 million. And that's been on a pretty regular decline with a few exceptions for each sequential quarter. So I think we'll continue to see that decline somewhat. But maybe eventually it stabilizes or the decline slows down, just because when I look at P50 Plus viewership from the limited data, this is not a total picture of what television is doing, but I can see the daily top 50 cable originals, and I can see the P50 Plus ratings for those top 50 cable originals every day from Showbuzz Daily. And there's some fluctuation over the years from 2016 forward, but from 2016 Q1 to 2022 Q1, P50 Plus viewership as a rating, so as a percentage of the population, has increased, not decreased. It's up 23% from Q1 of 2016 in Q1 of 2022. So if anything, while it has bounced up and down over the years, the last, I don't know what this is, 7 years, older people who are age 50 or older, if anything, have only increased their viewing. And yeah, there is this 2020 year where there's this enormous viewership because of all the things in the news that were happening in 2020. But that viewership is up. And as I've lectured on previous weeks, P50 Plus is never going to cut the cord. Most people, I think both, our parents are never going to cut the cord. They've talked about it, they threatened, it's too expensive, bad customer service. They still haven't done it though. My mom still has not canceled her cable. Now, if we look at younger people, absolutely, we see enormous attrition in 18 to 34, where 18 to 34 in Q1 2016 is down 68%. You got about 1/3 of the young adult audience today as we're watching TV in the top 50 in 2016, 7 years ago. Over 7 years, that audience, this data would suggest that young adult audience has diminished down to 1/3 of what it was 7 years ago. And that coincides with the increase in streaming. And I would suggest this goes even further into maybe we're seeing a settling down of this change in behavior across digital media more generally, not limited to streaming video technology, not limited to streaming video entertainment. But if we look at YouTube, especially in the US and Canada, we've got this, these are from investor relations at Facebook, these column charts here, where they're stacking up the various regions of the world and looking at their daily active users. Are you using Facebook on a daily basis? In the United States,
Yeah, I am.
in the United States, it's it's US and Canada, actually, it's 195 million daily active users, and that's been about what it's been since Q1 2020. Hasn't moved much in the US. Still growing in the Asia Pacific region, where maybe people are getting more access to broadband technology and maybe smartphone technology, the things that are needed to access Facebook. And we're seeing the rest of the world category still grow, but Europe still got a little bit of growth in some quarters here, but in US and Canada, pretty stable. Is it the same thing for monthly active users? We're seeing a little bit of growth in monthly active users, but daily active users seems pretty stable. What about Twitter? We're gonna talk about the whole media landscape today. I don't think we're gonna get to Elon Musk though. I think he's safe. But monthly active users. Did you know that Twitter doesn't even report their monthly active users anymore? Can you guess why?
No. Well, because it declined.
Can you look at the shape of this chart and guess why? Monthly active users basically stopped growing for Twitter in around 2017. What they prefer to talk about now is a metric that's growing called monetizable daily active Twitter users worldwide. So presumably there's users in other parts of the world that are becoming more monetized or more monetizable over time because of ad distribution or something. So that's what they talk about now. That number is growing. The number of people using Twitter, though, probably not growing. Of course, everyone watches streaming. Streaming is the majority of what people spend. Is the majority of what people are doing when they're sitting in front of the television. Is that correct? Most of the time when people are sitting on the couch watching TV, they're watching streaming.
That is not correct.
What?
No.
Nobody watches traditional TV anymore.
As you talked about earlier, there's a certain demographic that will not cut the cord, and that's that P50 plus.
So these are from Nielsen publishes this now every month and has done so for many months in a row now. They published this donut chart, which just looks delicious. Look at these. This looks like a really tasty donut, doesn't it? Where they publish, this is the percentage of streaming time, the amount of time that people in the U.S., this is particular to the U.S. now, the amount of time that people are spending among all their TV time. How much are they spending it on streaming? Well, it is growing slowly. It is up to 29, almost 30% in March. We don't have this for April yet. April is still ongoing. So we could round up and say 30% of the time that people are spending using a television is being spent on streaming. And that is up from the quarter before. They do put this out every month, but I just grabbed every 3 months here. In December, that number was not 30, it was 28%. Before that, it was 28%, and it was also 28%. So it's not like rapid growth where it's up by a few percent every month or every quarter. It is growing relatively slowly. Meanwhile, about 2/3 of the time that people spend in front of a television is still being spent on either broadcast or cable television. Traditional TV. Of course, that is skewed by age. As we can see here in the P50 plus category, this is for September. What is that? 79% of the time that people over the age of 50 spend using a TV, they're spending it on traditional TV. Only 17% streaming. And it gets more and more streaming, less and less traditional TV the younger you get, as you would expect. Cable TV is dying, and those businesses are dying. Isn't that right? Cable TV is not profitable. It's only a matter of time before it all collapses, right? Is that correct?
That is incorrect.
That's right. You've learned that most of the questions I ask you like that, the answer is no.
Yes. But I'm actually paying attention to the data too. Look at it.
Yes. So, but Gullo, don't you know that P18 AEW has taught me that P18 to 49 is the only thing that matters. P2 plus doesn't matter at all. P2 plus is dumb. Only old people. That measures old people disproportionately. It's the demo. The demo matters. Because that's what determines the ad rates, right? So how is cable not dying if the demo is down so substantially, and it's disproportionately, overwhelmingly people in this less valuable ad demo, age 50 and over, who are still sticking around? I mean, they must be getting
fees.
Oh, TV is not completely based on advertising revenue.
No, you pay a pretty hefty monthly subscription to whether you have like Comcast or whatever, plus all the fee they add on.
Where do let's at least major cable networks, where do they get the majority of their revenue from? It's from advertising though, still, right?
No, that would be from the rights from the networks. That's why we always have those disagreements where you lose like on Spectrum, like, oh, this network's not going to be on here because they can't agree to the compensation package.
Yes. Are you looking at the slide that we're on right now? You're in it. What are the 3 pie charts? What companies are these 3 pie charts for?
Turner, Fox, and NBC Universal, which, interesting enough, all companies that carry professional wrestling or sports entertainment.
Yes. Media, as I like to call it. And the 2 cable companies, now this is from 2019. This is not the latest data, but this is the latest that's available as far as I know. The majority of the Turner revenue comes from not advertising. The majority of the NBC Universal revenue comes from not advertising, from subscription fees that they get from DirecTV, from Comcast, well, themselves in that case, from DirecTV, from Cox Communications, from Spectrum, from Altice, Dish Network, whatever it is. In the case of Fox you can get over the air, so they don't charge as much. They still charge, though. That's still about 1/3 of Fox's revenue is paying cable systems, or being paid by cable systems, for the right to put Fox on their system. Even though you can get over the air, they still get to charge DirecTV and Comcast and Spectrum and Altice. They're still charging them to put an over-the-air network on their cable system. But they also make ad revenue.
The NFL would be part of that.
Yeah. They also get ad revenue. Ad revenue is the majority of Fox's revenue, and I would expect that that's the majority of NBC broadcast revenue. I would imagine it's the majority of CBS broadcast revenue, and ABC as well. But this system, this cable bundle, is still profitable. You know what's not profitable? Netflix is profitable. Peacock is not profitable. And I don't know about the others. HBO Max, Disney Plus, they might not be profitable yet. They're dumping a lot of money towards content. Cable bundle still profitable. Streaming not profitable yet. If you're a streaming consumer, you're gonna get a lot of pressure put on you soon to spend more on streaming. So there is that. Yes, I think that's all. Before
we move on, we do have a super chat. Just kind of backing up a little bit. What about the decline that's starting to happen? This for Darrell, generous super chat. Thank you, Darrell. What about the decline that's starting to happen with WB and how a lot of their executives are being let go and replaced? Where I think that's probably a lot of part of the merger.
I don't know of any particular cases. I know there were articles the day before the merger was really finalized about potential layoffs, and I'm sure many have happened. In the case, as far as it concerns wrestling, though, Brett White's is still in his job. Sam Linsky is still in his job. Those are the people who are very involved in the AEW relationship. That has not changed. Their boss has changed. Her name escapes me. We mentioned it last week. But the people who have been very involved with the AEW relationship between AEW and Turner, they are still there. So nothing's changing yet for AEW and its relationship with its TV partner, which is by far its most important relationship.
All right.
I merged the rating.
Move on.
I merged the ratings, Ryan, and Shoba's daily data. I don't know if there's a lot to say about this other than we can see where the reruns, I guess we can say this. We can see where the reruns land. The top 200 reruns for a given week. Where do they land? They land almost entirely outside of the top 150. You know what's inside the top 150 for a rerun? As Gullo gets his face closer to the screen.
Yeah, it's a small chart for me. I'll just let you answer the question. I mean, I would imagine on there is probably a wrestling program. But...
is wrestling a rerun though? No, The Big Bang Theory is one of the only programs, along with Impractical Jokers, which I think is a Turner property or Turner program. Those are there. So, but what my takeaway from this though is that the three big wrestling programs, SmackDown, Raw, Dynamite, are all a safe distance away from these reruns. Why does this matter? Reruns are far cheaper to broadcast because you're not producing them for the first time. There's probably a serious licensing fee involved, but you're not producing it for the first time. So reruns are easy to use to replace. If you're going to cancel something, you might just replace it with a rerun because it's more efficient, more profitable perhaps than what you're doing currently. Good news though for WWE's flagship programs and for Dynamite in that they are a safe distance away from the best performing reruns. Practical Jokers did really well, but even Dynamite is a safe distance. This is in the demo, a safe distance away from The Big Bang Theory and anything else that's on the chart that is a well-performing rerun. Rampage is performing below a lot of reruns. Rampage is on a weaker time slot though, so I would take that into account. Other reruns that perform strongly: Friends on Nick at Night, The Office on Comedy Central, Family Guy, I think, on TBS. So things like that. There's that. You wanted to talk about all the names that have changed because that really irks you about WWE, right? That's what you told me earlier, I think.
So we might as well bring up the names though. Have changed recently. There was that story that came out that McMahon wanted to go away from people using their real names or their indie names, and we've seen 11 name changes in just in the last 4 weeks. Now we didn't include Walter into Gunther, because that happened, I think, early March.
Yes.
I think that happened.
Your assignment was give me all the name changes that happened in the last 4 weeks or so.
So, but these were, and I think I caught every one of them. Who knows? I could have missed some. But we got Rockwell Gonzalez is now Rockwell Rodriguez, so not much of a changer. Casey Contazaro was a name outside of wrestling, which this why this one surprised me. But she's
that's her real name. That's her real name, though, right?
Yes,
we can't have
people's
American real Ninja names. Warrior. We can't have people's real names being used because then they could gain recognition under that name. And then they could leave WWE and use that name to maintain their value. No. That's not in the interest of shareholders. Or Vince McMahon's sense of control.
Kaylee Ray is now Alba Fire. Austin Theory is now just Theory.
Thank God. That was confusing for me that there was a Steve Austin and an Austin
is now
Theory. I couldn't keep those two things straight. So my script could not keep those two things straight. I'm doing a script that detects the names and puts the unique ID. It was getting confused. My script is a casual fan, apparently. It was getting confused between Steve Austin and Austin Theory.
Mace is now Face, which I don't think that's something they've done on television. They've done on unaired.
This was in Buffalo that this happened, wasn't it?
No. That was the SmackDown before. I
have to say, when I looked at this list that you put together, Mace is now Face.
Yes. Yep, that's
Face. Why?
Yeah.
Let's repackage them. This Mace thing, maybe that needs to be refreshed. Let's call him Face. Is he gonna be a heel? Is that like a heel face pun?
He's gonna be a heel. Yeah, it looks like it's gonna be a heel. Yeah.
Okay.
Roxy is now Roxanne.
She used that name on the outside. Can't have that.
Yep. Raul Mendoza, who's been in NXT for a while under that name, is now Cruz del Toro.
Yes.
Zach Gibson is now just Gibson. And yes. James Drake is Drake.
Good.
The NXT,
much better. It's like somebody needs a haircut. Like they have this extra thing cut it off. And they will no longer be referred to as the Grizzled Young Veterans. Their tag team name, that's a name that they have used outside of WWE. We can't have that because they could go back and use that when they leave. So just Gibson, and they'll probably be able to use Gibson and Drake though because they've used those surnames outside of WWE. So I
have seen the shortened to
the
GYV.
I think they could
when they come out.
I think maybe they should be renamed again so that they have even less value outside of WWE. That would be more in the interest of the shareholders.
Marcel Barthel is now Ludwig Kaiser, and then Pete Dunne is Butch.
Yes, as we're aware, everyone is aware of that. Ludwig Kaiser. That doesn't get more stereotypical than that, does it?
No.
Okay.
So yeah, there's your name changes that we have here. We did get a super chat, kind of going back to the AEW Dynamite stuff. If you wouldn't mind me asking that here,
sure.
Glenny Kodra, thank you for your super chat. How much more lucrative is a Dynamite over BBT?
Big Bang Theory.
Considering how much Turner pays for considering how much Turner pays over for AEW programming and reruns are cheap.
It's hard.
How much more lucrative?
It's extremely. I don't know. There'd be at least two questions here, right? What are the ad rates for Big Bang Theory? How does that compare to the ad rates for Dynamite? I have no sense. I could see either being higher. I could see Big Bang Theory being higher because it's not wrestling, and maybe it's more attractive to advertisers. I could see Dynamite being more lucrative because the demo rating is usually higher and it's live content. Maybe that adds a premium to the ad rates. Then what is Turner paying a licensing fee for Big Bang Theory? I would expect it to be much lower than what they're paying for Dynamite, which is like $800,000 a week or something like that. It's $44 million a year. I doubt they're paying that much. I bet it's in the millions, well into the millions, many millions that they're probably paying per year to license Big Bang Theory, I would guess, because that's not a property that they own, right? It's not a property that Warner Media has owned, I don't think. So it's definitely more expensive in that case. The ad rates are probably comparable. I would imagine it is more profitable for Big Bang Theory to be on television, producing maybe not as good ad revenue as Dynamite does, but in the realm, I would think. And it's probably cheaper to license. So I don't know. That's as much as I can say about it. Yet, it stands to reason though, if it were as cut and dry as that Dynamite is way less efficient to broadcast, then why are they broadcasting Dynamite at all? Because they've got to figure that it's not going to be doing ratings that are that much better than what it's doing in terms of, look at where it's ranking. Its ranking is the number 3 program often, sometimes the number 1 program among cable originals on the day. Why aren't they just airing a lot more reruns? There's got to be some reason for that. Maybe part of the reason is that eventually they can use Dynamite as a package to convince carriers like DirecTV, Comcast, to pay them a better carriage fee because they've got live content that people will be more likely to retain their cable subscription because of. Maybe I'm just free associating here. That would be my guess. And as we know, so those carriage fees are the majority of their revenue, more important than the revenue that is generated from ads, even though it's been drilled into our heads that the demo is the only thing that matters. Well, I think P2 Plus matters because that represents subscribers who are contributing a greater portion of the revenue for a cable company.
All right. Move on to
so Gullo, this section we're gonna skip. We're gonna go ahead to talk about fasts. Do you remember what a fast is?
Okay. That is ad-supported television.
Very good. Very good. There was not even a clue in the slides here that would tell you exactly what it was. Some examples of free ad-supported television.
We got IMDb TV, the Roku channel, Peacock, Plex, Tubi TV, and Pluto TV.
Is Peacock is a fast, though? I thought it was a subscription service.
Well, it's free with the Comcast package. And then when you have that, you get the ad-supported one.
And nobody can watch anything for free on Peacock without a paying subscription?
No, I believe there is some stuff that is available for free on there. I believe probably the NBC Next Day programming, I'm assuming.
There's a limited amount of content that you can watch for free on Peacock. Plex is something that I've heard of that people would use to watch movies that are like from their computer or something.
Yes.
But apparently it's
But Plex also has their own. Yeah, they have their own library of free movies, free television shows. I think they carry like those channels, those streaming channels that are on the same channels that are on Plex, that are also on the LG TVs, that are on Pluto, those news channels and music videos and sports and stuff like that.
Okay. Who owns all of these properties that we're looking at right now? I don't know who owns Plex, so we can skip over that one. Roku is independent. IMDb TV. Do you know who owns that?
I actually do not.
Amazon. Peacock is obviously owned by NBC Universal. Tubi is owned by who?
Fox.
And Pluto TV is owned by who?
I'm assuming it's Viacom.
Formerly known as Viacom, now known as Paramount. Yes.
Paramount, yes.
Yeah. So there's that. I don't really understand personally the appeal of fast. I've never. I mean, I'm not a big TV watcher, I guess, as it is. But do you use any of these services? I guess Peacock we use to watch WWE, but
Yeah, no, I actually do. It's not like appointment television, but it's one of those things that like it's late at night and I don't really know what to watch. I'll put Pluto TV on. I enjoy the Wings channel. I like Wings. Like so
the
they have
TV series Wings.
They have
This is not like
24/7 Wings.
This is not like a network that's just talking about buffalo wings and various
This is
about buffalo wings.
This is the sitcom 90s Wings that I think only me and social media wrestling influencer RJ City talk about in public. But yes,
okay. I do remember Wings. I remember Wings. It was a show about an airport where they would never actually see the planes. Yes, go ahead.
They have like some music video channels I'll sometimes throw on in the background. It's a great thing for the Yule log when you have family over for Christmas and the holidays. But it's not appointment television. It's not something I'm always watching. And then just if I want to watch a random old movie, sometimes it's only available on say like Tubi and I'll watch that. But I don't really use these channels a lot. They're not built into my regular everyday habit.
And I think there's a fair amount of wrestling presence on some of these services. Obviously, Peacock has WWE. Roku has New Japan.
Yep.
Pluto. I think I've been on Pluto on Beyond Wrestling.
They have two. Yeah, Pluto's got two. They got a wrestling channel, which shows Beyond WWR, which is Beyond Affiliate. They've shown Defy, I think, is on there. PCW Ultra out of Los Angeles.
And Impact is on here.
Impact has its own channel, yes.
Okay.
But wrestling channel too. The wrestling channel's got old like late 80s, early 90s stuff from like ICCW and stuff that I love watching.
Okay. And Tubi, as we know, MLW was in discussions with Tubi. Allegedly, WWE interrupted this. By the way, there is an update on the MLW WWE lawsuit. There was a Mark Kasowitz, the high-powered attorney representing MLW, filed a response to WWE's motion to dismiss. There's no real new information or evidence or allegations in it. It's just a lot of legal arguing to argue against the argument that Jerry McDevitt was making in favor of WWE. Kasowitz arguing that yes, it does in fact meet antitrust requirements. So that case continues to be ongoing, and we'll be sure to let you know when there's new information there. Would it ever make sense for a wrestling company to launch its own fast, though?
Depending on how good the ad rates would be, though. The ad rates on that,
Yeah.
I don't know what an ad rate is for a lot of these,
I think, what if AEW launched a fast that had all of its whatever content, I guess AEW or Tony Khan owns at this point, which would be all the AEW content and the Ring of Honor content. And maybe that's a way for them to, I don't know if it generates a ton of revenue for them on their scale, but it at least starts to give them a presence on streaming, a way for non-cable households to reach them, other than YouTube, in a way that's, other than social media or YouTube. Maybe it's a way, I don't know. Maybe it's a way that they can sell pay-per-view on a more direct-to-consumer basis with a higher margin for themselves, rather than just through cable distributors or Fight or BR. I don't know, what is it? There's a Bleacher Report app still, right? But not a BR Live app. Anyway, so maybe that's something that could happen. And maybe eventually, if they get enough of a track record and presence as a fast platform, maybe eventually that's something that has value to eventually be bought out or licensed by a major player someday. Something to think about. But that's all. We will tackle my big TV rights speculation another day, because otherwise this program is going to be 2 hours long. In the world of YouTube, the Ronda Rousey and Charlotte Flair clip is on track to be the most watched YouTube clip of the week. In fact, if I go into my, where is it? YouTube YouTube line charts, and I tell this script to run right now. This is only as of 9 o'clock. We will get this as of noon if my script cooperates with us while I'm streaming and doing all sorts of other things, making this stream not work perfectly. Really frustrating streaming issues that I apologize for. I might have to just get better internet service here. I've been very frustrated today looking at all the frames that are dropping. But here we go. This is running really slowly because of all the stuff that I'm doing here. But it is opening. And there we go. No, it's still behind. It's still behind. But it's definitely on track. You look at this trajectory. In fact, this what is this 970,000 one? The top 10 moments of SmackDown is doing well, as it usually does. So there's that. If today's the day you want to make the argument that Ronda Rousey and maybe Charlotte Flair are a draw, you have a modicum of evidence today. But that's all. Anything else to add?
Nothing much. We covered the GCW IWTV settlement on Wednesday. But for our listeners that didn't tune in on Wednesday, there was a agreement with that it would GCW would have to provide 8 exclusive shows to IWTV over the next 12 months. It will be no money exchanged hands.
Yes. Our talk from Wednesday is on YouTube. And it is on the audio version is on the Patreon podcast feed also. But that's all for us this week. If you hit thumbs up on this video, if you're watching on YouTube, we would really appreciate that. If you give us a nice review on your podcast app, that would be wonderful of you. As always, the Wrestlenomics Patreon is at patreon.com/Wrestlenomics, and it has my TV ratings reports that come out nearly every day, and you get access to the Wrestlenomics Viewership Spreadsheet data, as well as other things I report, including quarter hours. But what about you, Chris Gullo?
The part 3 of the Burt Prentice deep dive will be out Wednesday on Rediscovering Indies RTI Pod. So check us out there, and you can always follow me on social media next. I'll be appearing somewhere possibly today, as well as
possibly.
I got a few shows coming up in May. So yes,
only possibly.
Possibly, yes.
Okay, that's all for this week. Thanks as always to Post Wrestling for being tremendous media distribution partners, and we will talk to you next time. Bye.